Yeah, my name is Ryan Mattison. I look after content and communications at ThoughtSpot, which is the modern analytics cloud company. We help business users, data leaders, data professionals make more sense of their data quickly using familiar interfaces from our personal lives. So whether that's search, whether that's AI sending us recommendations, it's really bringing that consumer experience to the world of data. Yeah, the most exciting part of my job, I love campaign launch days. Like those are my favorite day when sort of all of the work that has been going on, sometimes it feels like behind the scenes, folks outside of perhaps, the marketing organization or the go-to-market team, doesn't necessarily know obviously what's sort of cooking, and obviously then the outside world doesn't know. And so I love launch days. I love when you get to see new things going live on the website. I love seeing the press picking up on our activity or our announcement. I love seeing videos go live, social feeds lighting up. That to me is one of the most exciting parts of the job. I'd say the most tiring part of the job is usually the few days leading up to those launches. Those are when it's really cross-functional. There's all the little paper cuts that are just part of a big launch or an integrated sort of campaign moment like that. That's when those will get exposed. That's when you're in the trenches with your colleagues, fixing things, tweaking, getting it exactly right, so that again on that day, it really everything shines. Everything feels like it's sort of a polished machine that's up and running. So it's both, right? Like those are the days that I live for that are so exciting, and then the days before are the ones where you really have to put in the sweat equity in order to make those pop. Yeah, I think in general there's a couple of sort of obviously you tailor your KPIs or your metrics to the individual campaign, but I think across campaigns, what you want to see is uh, general. Are you cutting through the noise? Are you getting people to come and engage with your content? Is it outperforming existing content? Is it something that if it's new that it's getting sort of that attention that you want? So in general, like is it sort of that attention grabbing moment? Second is once you have people's attention, are they engaging? So you can look at that as like time on page, you can look at it as engagements on social, but really looking for a metric that says, are people, once you with your headline or your ad or whatever you're using to bring people in, your email, to get them into your sort of content funnel to start with, are they then spending time with that piece of content? Are they scrolling enough where you're like, okay, if I've got X amount of time on page, are they getting actually through 70% of the content, 90% of the content? And then third, is are they taking an action that you want based on the story that you're building in that content? So is it depending on what the campaign could be, that could be are they starting a free trial of your product? It could be, are they downloading a more extensive piece of content, as an ebook or something that you're going to then they're getting into your marketing funnel? Is it that they sign up for an event that your company is hosting? Whatever that sort of conversion point may be, that's really are they, again, is the content and the story pulling them into the funnel that you want? So I'd say first, are you cutting through the noise, right? Every content campaign is it getting attention? Is it getting eyeballs? From there, are they actually spending the time in your content? Are they bouncing? Are they seeing it as clickbaity? Is it actually providing value? Then I'd say most important for really good, especially the bigger campaigns that you're working on, do they take the final action that you want to get them somewhere else into the marketing funnel? I wish I could say that it was one or the other. There's a little bit of a need for both, but I think good quality wins. I think about that, like if you look at, pick any company that seems to be doing really well from, let's just say like an SEO perspective. It's usually not every single piece of content, is performing to the same degree. There's usually a couple of breakout stars that are really, really performing, and that's because the content's good. I think about that even on our own site. We've got a couple of really, really strong pieces of content that continue to outperform even new content that we're launching. So I think again, quality is a non-negotiable in today's space. As soon as you start creating garbage content, it doesn't matter how much quantity you have, people are going to ignore you. And it's easier now than ever for consumers. And I'll say that generally, like we're all consumers, right? Whether we're in a business space, whether we're in our personal lives, it's easier for us to ignore content. Both, think about how much time you actually spend in the feed, blocking out, the ad boxes and things like that, or unsubscribing to emails. Like we have a lot more control. But the flip side of that is that, I think in general, consumers are much more apt to say, hey, you can have my data, you can reach me. I want you to, be able to get in touch with me if you're going to provide me with something that's valuable. if you're going to
Right.
provide me something that's interesting. Um, so I think quality is the true non-negotiable. Then the
Yeah.
question is, how do you ramp quantity without sacrificing quality? Um,
Perfect.
it doesn't mean that always every single piece of content needs to be your tier one, big, fancy, polished, integrated campaign, core asset. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, if you start to say, hey, let's get two pieces done, they're only going to be 50% of what we would say. It's, in my mind, it's better to get one piece of really strong content than to have something that is maybe going to fulfill your KPIs for that quarter, but long term is going to hurt your ability to build a relationship with your audience. Every part of marketing at some point is content, right? Like whether it's an email that it's going to be part of a nurture campaign, whether it's an announcement that you're going to make externally, whether it's a video that you're working on, everything can be seen through a lens of content. So I think being very explicit on what is the content program going to be or trying to accomplish, and then how are you going to measure that, so that you can be tight when you're building sort of this program from the ground up. I think back to I started off as really like a one-man band in here at ThoughtSpot, and what I've found to be successful as we've grown the content team is being, again, just very explicit with what are the goals of the program and how are we going to measure if we've achieved those goals. That is the single best forcing function to drive efficiency and focus within a team. I think that's true generally, but especially in my experience with content, because again, anything in the go-to-market function can at some point be sort of seen as content. And so being clear, is it awareness? Is this really a brand play that the content team is going to be held responsible for? Is content really being measured as part of like a PLG motion? In which case, is it going to be SEO and then percentage of conversion from some of that content? Is content's main purpose to be sort of the engine that fuels the demand gen team? If that's the case, is it going to be MQLs and SALs? So being very explicit with what is the sort of goal of the team is important. The second piece of that is then being judicious on stacking resources with those goals. I think it's also sometimes one of the traps I've seen other like friends of mine who work in content marketing who are building, especially at startups from the ground up. They'll be like, okay, here's the 11 things that we want to measure the content team on. Well, you have 2 or 3 people in your content team. Yep. So being clear about what's actually achievable, so that you're not saying, here's the 10 metrics we want to move, but we're going to be doing 10% on each of those, which is really not enough to actually sort of turn the dial. So then again, it's pairing like the right resourcing with limiting the actual number of KPIs that you're tracking, so you actually move those numbers forward.